All right, so we're recording the video so we can have it for later. I think we've got names changed and students and team numbers here. So welcome to everyone. Again, if you haven't answered the 12 styles under stress pre-work, I'll put that in the chat one more time. So there's a link in there you can click on to submit your answers to the Google form. We'll refer to that in a little bit as we go. But welcome to tonight's Professional Skills Workshop Series. Tonight is on crucial conversations. We've done this topic for a few years now. And so I'm happy to have Mr. Gupta joining me tonight. So we'll take you through this. Because this is a perennial topic, keep in mind that some of this material, you may have seen it 3 times. But also keep in mind some people are seeing it for the first time. We've been trying to be extra intentional with our breakout rooms and our report outs this year. And so please help those of you with more experience and more familiar with the topics, please help facilitate those conversations and decide who's going to be sharing out for each of those that we have throughout the evening. And finally, yes, we're going to focus on crucial conversations for the next hour. But remember, this is something we practice all the time at every meeting, outside of meetings. And so all of these interactions are opportunities for us to develop these skills further, which is great. All right. So Crucial Conversations comes from this 200-page book. There's been a couple different editions of it. There's also a 3-day corporate training exercise, which I have not had the pleasure to do, but Mr. John has. What we're going to do, since we don't have 3 days and we don't have time to read 200 pages, Mr. John has guided us to presenting 2 things for all of us to think about when we are talking with other people so that we can both make progress toward our goals. We're going to start with an example of a conversation that has just turned crucial. And so Mr. Gupta and I are going to do this to set the stage, so to speak. We are both in the CAD room. We're in room 115. Mr. Gupta has just started playing music. I'm working in that room as well. And then the conversation starts. So, dude, what is this garbage? You're playing The Weeknd? Seriously? That's what you chose for background noise?
Hey, chill out. I like this track. It's a good beat, and he's a huge artist. Everyone listens to him. I was thinking we could listen to a few tracks from his new album.
Everyone listens to him. Exactly. It's the most basic mainstream corporate approved noise ever invented. It's what you play when you have 0 personality. I bet you still use the default ringtone on your phone.
Hey, but the vocal range is pretty impressive, and he has co-produced this track, so it's not some random throwaway song.
Oh, and then you probably think the algorithm that recommends this stuff to you is actually curating your musical taste. You probably haven't even heard a band that uses an instrument other than a synthesizer since middle school band practice. You need to expand your palette beyond whatever is topping the Spotify charts.
He gets so annoying when he gets like this. I'm just going to agree. Well, wow, you are right. My taste is somewhat worse, and my folder looks like a playlist for a 5-year-old birthday party compared to yours. So maybe you could, totally take over the music and see what intellectual and obscure music you can play and I can learn from.
What do you mean put on something really intellectual and obscure? It's a way better idea than anything you'll ever have. You'll never appreciate true musical genius if you keep listening to this. And that whole script is captured in, so we're out of character now, we're back. That whole script is captured in the slides for you to refer to later because we are going to come back to that. That was an ugly conversation. quick reaction, and you can click the reaction buttons. How many people have, maybe not quite that dramatic, how many people have seen something like that or never want to be in a conversation like that? Yeah, lots of raised hands. Um, so in that conversation, their relationship went very bad. That conversation went very badly. And so therefore their relationship went very badly because the two people in conversation did not recognize what was happening. Or more precisely, they did not recognize that they were moving away from dialogue and moving into an argument where their motives were changing from what is best um, for us at this moment in the CAD room and what is best for our relationship. And instead, the dialogue changed to how can I win this argument so that I know that my music is best. The two things that you need to learn about when you're in conversation and dialogue with other people are to learn to look and make it safe. In the conversation you just witnessed, neither person could see that they're no longer maintaining their relationship, and neither person took action to make it safe for the other person to come back to a meaningful conversation where the relationship could be strengthened. These are the two skills we're going to be teaching tonight, along with specific tools for each. Let's start with learn to look. Learning to look means recognizing your part in the conversation and their part in the conversation. You want to see if either one of you have moved away from dialogue and has moved either to verbal silence or verbal violence. At the extremes, both verbal silence and verbal violence are very easy to recognize. Either someone has stopped talking and might be running away, or someone is yelling, but there are many aspects to what verbal silence and verbal violence looks like that aren't quite that extreme. You want to recognize if a conversation turns crucial. That is when the emotions of one or both of you start ramping up. On the screen, you can see the major categories of verbal silence and verbal violence and some key words to help explain them, such as avoiding and withdrawing for silence, or controlling and attacking for violence. In the pre-work, we had asked that you answer 12 questions to determine what is called your style under stress, and then add that to the Google form. So if you have that handy, maybe it's still pulled up in another tab, you can take a look again at your true answers. And if you look at the numbers here on the slide, if your true answers are mostly for questions 1 through 6, then you currently prefer verbal silence. If your answers are mostly for questions 7 through 12, then you currently prefer verbal violence. You're not born this way and you're not stuck this way. This is only a style that you use. It's not an inalterable character trait or genetic predisposition. You can learn to change your behavior away from using these styles and instead find ways to stay in dialogue with the other person. All right. I'm going to very quickly stop sharing so I can update the results from that poll. I'll start it again. There we go, all updated. And share it one more time with everyone. All right, so here's our current results. So this is organized into all six of the different categories. And we can see that as a team, or at least as the subset of the team who submitted the Google form, um, we tend to exhibit styles that are more towards verbal silence and less toward verbal violence. And that's just a characteristic at the moment for our team, but it's useful to know as we think about each other, think about staying in dialogue with each other, and how we each might react in stressful situations. So overall, when we add it all up, we can see that we're over twice and almost three times more likely to retreat into verbal silence than we are to act into verbal violence. So now that we've learned a few things of what to look for in terms of those different characteristics, the next question we need to consider is, okay, well, what do we do when we see it happening? Recognizing that the other person has gone to verbal violence might be very easy, but being able to bring the conversation back to meaningful dialogue might not look so easy. The authors put so many tools into each one of these sections to help people find ways to get back to dialogue. And you can see those appearing on your screen. Amazingly, the authors have said that even if people don't remember all the tools in this book, if people just try, if they simply reach out and attempt to bring the other person back into dialogue, they are usually successful. But don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging without any other tools. We are going to focus on some of them. So, how do you pull people back into dialogue when they are showing obvious signs of silence or violence, or even when you think that the conversation is just starting to move away from dialogue? Things haven't gotten bad yet, but it feels like they might. This is where you have to focus on making it safe. As members of a robotics team and as humans in this world, you need to ensure that others feel safe in their conversations with you in order to reach your combined goals. Let's say you have recognized that you or the other person are moving to verbal silence or verbal violence. Now is the time to stop talking about the thing that made the conversation turn critical, like tastes in music, and work on making it safe again. We call this stepping out of the conversation so that we can focus on safety. You want it to be safe for both of you to be able to share your thoughts so you can understand what the true issues are and get to work addressing those. The first two skills we will learn tonight for the make it safe category is to apologize when appropriate. If you have the sudden realization that we're sure I really said that, then you need to apologize. The other is contrast to improve understanding. We're going to get to some examples in a minute because both these concepts are a little bit abstract. After we either apologize or use contrasting, we will then have to repeat. We are all only human. We all will make mistakes. And as we noted in previous trainings, failure is something that happens and that we learn from as part of this team. Your conversation will not go perfectly, but 9 times out of 10, you can build the relationship if you do the compassionate work to make it safe. You're going to likely have to apologize and use contrasting more than once. Let's talk more about apologize when appropriate. Apologizing is very effective when done well and very ineffective when it is not done well. I'm going to ask all of you, or at least a few of you, to share an apology that you have heard. And then we can use our like little reactions to kind of like share our thoughts on these examples. And so you can vote with like the different emojis to see how what you think of the apology. Um, So, if you're willing to share how an apology that you have heard, then go ahead and raise your hand. I'm just looking for a few people. Before we start sharing, let's not use any names. And also, if you're sharing, don't tell us whether you personally thought it was a good or bad apology. We want to see that what everyone here tonight thinks instead. All right, so who would like to share an example of an apology that they had witnessed? This is where you raise your hand and then I call on you and you share your cool apology.
Sounds like nobody apologizes.
Any examples? Oops, I clicked in the wrong place. There we go. They don't have to be great. They don't have to be good apologies or bad apologies. You don't even have to know. You can just share and see what we all think. All right. Thank you, Stefan, for stepping up. What is your example apology?
Um, I've been in conversations before, and then someone does like I'm sorry that you feel that way.
All right. So I'm sorry that you feel that way. I've heard that apology. So now everyone vote with the emojis in the Zoom reactions panel. Surprise, bad apology, heart, good apology. How do we think about that one? I see a whole bunch of surprises, bad apologies. All right, we're going to talk more about that example in just a second. Does someone else have another example they want to share, a different type of apology? Yeah, Evie, go ahead.
Something like, oh, I meant it as a joke. I didn't think you would take it that way.
Oh, I like that. I've heard that many times too. All right, so let's vote again with our emojis in the Zoom reaction panel. Surprise, not such a good apology. Heart, good apology. All right, I am seeing a lot of surprise emojis. Yeah, so those are those are common ones. I have heard both of those multiple times. All right, so let's look into this. So obviously we have all witnessed bad apologies. Let's dive into more about what makes an apology good or bad. So when we're talking about apologizing, what I mean is that you have to apologize from the heart. You have to recognize your role in the problem. So by that, I do not mean things like, I'm sorry if you were hurt by what I said. That sounds a lot like Stefan's. I'm sorry if you feel that way. I'm sorry you misunderstood. Okay, that's not what I mean. The column on the left is sometimes called fake apologies. Something really, really needs to be clarified here that's very important. I'm not asking you to apologize for things that you didn't do. That's not a good apology either. I'm telling you to really listen to what the other person says and to really think about what your part in the conversation was and apologize for the things you did and said that were not helpful. You need to apologize from the heart. You have to really mean it. or the other person will see right through it, and the trust that you are working to build will be destroyed. It's hard to apologize well. We're much more likely to do it well when we lead from the heart. All right. The next skill we can use is contrasting. I've been using contrasting throughout this whole presentation. Sometimes when the stakes are high, you need to be sure to say not only what you mean, but also what you do not mean. This verbal contrasting helps to clarify your intent. You will need to say something like, I do not mean that, whatever you're trying to communicate. I do mean this, to help the other person understand your true intent. Here's an example. When I said I wanted you to get this done as soon as possible, I did not mean that I expect you to do robotics outside of the meeting. I do mean that while we are in the meetings, I expect you to prioritize this task above the others. There's a great example of contrast. All right, so let's review where we're at. Here are the first two skills again in the make it safe category. Apologizing when appropriate and using contrasting to improve understanding. And then we have to remember to repeat because we all make mistakes and we will need to fix them. And so we need to continue to make it safe. There will be times when you are doing the hard, compassionate work to make it safe, and the other person is still stuck in silence or violence. As part of making it safe, it also helps to rivet, resist interrupting, and value everyone's truth. For example, you could ask, I'd really like to hear your opinion on this. Or you could say, don't worry about hurting my feelings. I really want to know your thoughts. You could also mirror. That might look like, you say you're okay, but from the tone of your voice, you seem upset. Or you could share, you look nervous about doing this. Another technique you could use is to paraphrase. For example, that could sound like, I'd like to check my understanding. I think that. You could state in your own words then what their perspective concern is, and then ask, did I understand correctly? Another technique is to suggest. This one's a little tricky and it's kind of more of a last result one. But here the person is in silence and they aren't sharing anything. So to help them feel safe to share, you propose something that you think could be why they're not talking to you. And you propose it in a way that shows you are ready to take responsibility for your words and actions. And this needs to be done tentatively. For example, you could say something like, are you thinking that I pulled you off that project because I thought you couldn't do it? These are all tools we can use to make it safe for others to share. Now that we've been introduced to these tools, we're going to go back to Mr. Gupta's and I's conversation later during the meeting. So at this point, we're no longer in the CAD room. We're no longer in room 115. Mr. Gupta is now cleaning up the practice field in the small cafe. And I've been doing some thinking, and I walk up to Mr. Gupta. Hey, Mr. Gupta, can we talk for a minute about earlier in the CAD classroom? I'm really sorry about how I acted when you put on the weekend.
So are you going to just apologize so you can go back to judging everyone's playlist tomorrow?
It sounds like you feel like I don't value your tastes in music, or maybe even your opinions in general. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm not here because I want to keep fighting or keep making you feel bad about what you listen to. I am here because I genuinely regret shutting down your song choice and making you feel like your preference is worthless. I understand now that my reaction really hurt.
Fine, I accept the apology, but if it happens if this happens all the time, Mr. Schmidt.
It sounds like this is a bigger issue than just the song today. I really want to understand what I'm missing. When I judge your music, what exactly is going on for you? Can you tell me?
Yeah, it makes me feel like you think I'm basic or dumb. Like my perspective is only valid if it aligns with your hyper niche area or the real music of your choice. And that just sucks the fun out of everything.
Is it possible that you feel like I don't see the diversity you bring to our group because I only focus on my narrow idea of what's good?
Yes, and like you can only appreciate music that comes from your box. I like the obscure stuff and the mainstream stuff. It's like you see my different taste as a weakness and, well, just difference.
Wow, I've really been making you feel like your difference isn't valuable. I am so sorry. I get so focused on my own superior taste that I completely forget that having diverse interests is what actually makes things interesting. I can see that my attitude isn't just about music, it's not just about respecting the value of your perspective brings to our team. Can you help me come up with some ways to make sure I pause and appreciate what you listen to, even if it's not what I choose?
Yeah. Are you really going to try and listen to my thoughts without making a face?
Yes, I am. All right. So that's our next approach there. So FRC, fix relationship concerns. And again, the script is here for your reference, which you will need in a moment. So we're going to do a breakout now. And this is what I'd like you to do in your breakout rooms in your small groups. I want you to analyze the conversation. Again, that's like in the previous slide, which I had shared earlier. Let me put those in again. There you go. So it's in the chat. So if you don't have it open, you can click on that link and have it ready to go for the breakout rooms. What I want you to discuss in the breakout rooms is I want you to analyze the conversation and discuss how did I work to repair the relationship? What specific tools did I use? Some of the tools that we focused on this evening are apologize, contrast, repeat, ask, mirror, paraphrase, suggest. Again, you can scroll back in the slides and see all of those as well. We're going to have a few groups report out. So when you're having this discussion, please choose a speaker for your group so that you're good to go and we don't have that super awkward pause. All right. When you do share out, try to focus on just 2 or 3 of the tools. We don't need like everything commented on, just to provide space for other people to share. So I am going to very quickly here click on my breakout rooms and create a bunch of rooms. Give me a second to make sure I have those all set up well here. Yeah, I think this looks great. All right. So I've got this set up right now for 3 minutes plus then you'll get the 1-minute countdown before you actually come back. So 4 minutes in total. And I'm going to click on the open rooms button now. All right, welcome back, everyone. So again, I'm looking for 2 or 3 groups to share out, to comment on just 2 or 3 of the tools that you saw in the conversation between myself and Mr. Gupta. So who would like to get us started? Go ahead, Noga.
So in my group, we talked a lot about making sure that Mr. Gupta was ready when Mr. Schmidt asked if now was a good time to talk, and like kind of bringing up that idea. And then another one we talked about a lot is like repeating himself and making sure to stick with it in like that same tone and attitude throughout the entire conversation, even when he was facing like pushback from Mr. Gupta and stuff like that.
Great, thank you. Stefan, what did you want to share from your group?
So our group talked about how a really big key was how you use the contrast strategy where it's like, oh, making sure that they know you weren't intending to do one thing and that you were intending to do another. And then also like asking questions and digging deeper, like knowing that it might be like a deeper issue than just the surface level.
Great. Very often there is a deeper issue than just the surface level. Elizabeth, what did you and your group talk about?
Oh, we talked about how you asked how Mr. Gupta felt about the situation, and then also um like mirrored it to how it could be a bigger issue.
For sure. So, and this is obviously like a constructed example. I think Mr. Gupta's taste in music are just great. But so purposefully trying to illustrate like those different strategies. Some fit better than other in any given conversation. And so part of why this takes practice, and why we need to repeat and why we need to keep trying is like figuring out what's going to be most effective for the conversation you're in at the moment.
I like the fact that Noga, I think, was mentioning about staying calm in the situation, even though it was sort of inviting for you to react. So it's not listed here, but that's a good observation that ignoring to take the bait is one of the key ways to keep an outcome-based approach and inviting collaboration. So that's good observation.
Here are some like other examples, sentence stems. Sometime I know personally, like when I know I have one of these crucial conversations coming up, it's hard for me to figure out like, well, what am I going to say? How am I going to get started? What might they react to? So here are a few constructed by Mr. John for our benefit, which I think are great. And they all illustrate different aspects. So it's like, I'd like to talk about, I do not think this is your fault, and I know that I may not understand all of the issues. Can we talk about this? So great use of contrasting. It's got the tentative aspect. Asking permission is powerful. Asking permission is a way we cede power to the other person so that they feel safer in the conversation. And just because you say something like that doesn't mean it's going to work. The other person might respond, "Why should we? You never listen to me." Right? And so like we're certainly not there yet. And so things like what I want is for whatever it happens to be, while not causing anyone to, there's the contrasting again. Is this what you want? Almost always somewhere you can find a mutual purpose between you and the other person. And when you identify that mutual purpose, that provides a place to start from. When you have a mutual purpose, there is something you agree on, and you can build from there. And their response hopefully would be, yes, but I also want. So now they are willing to share. They're feeling safer. We're starting to get back into dialogue again. So some great Great examples here for Mr. John. All right. So what we focused on tonight, again, it's a very long book, but what we focused on tonight are some of the most powerful tools in the entire Crucial Conversations book. With these tools, you can be effective. You can change your relationships at Robotics. You can change your relationships with your friends. You can change your relationships with your parents. This isn't a robotics thing. This is a life thing. And that's part of what makes it so powerful. So simply learning to look, and again, to reiterate, it's both learning to look for the other person leaving no longer feeling safe, and which is sometimes more challenging, learning to look when you and recognizing in yourself when your behaviors indicate that you are no longer feeling safe. And then the second step of then, okay, pausing that conversation, what can you do? What can you say to make it safe for both people again? All right, so now we get to try to apply this stuff. This is going to be a longer breakout. We're gonna do like 7-8 minutes. We'll see. And I want to leave some time for both either people to share verbally what their group talked about, but also it's okay just to copy and paste into the chat. So I want to share that up front. Now we want to put everything together. We want you in your breakout room to think about how you could address one of these two issues that are on the screen here. And again, this is in the slides that I shared, so you can refer to it in your breakout room. Quickly in your breakout room, select one of these two prompts. I want to provide you the choice. I don't want you to spend all your time debating which one to tackle. Then you're going to like role play this, like play the part of the first person who talks. So imagine that someone has just said, "Why isn't my part ready yet? I marked it as a high priority." Next, imagine that the other person responds with, "Somebody else told me to fabricate this first." Then as a group, discuss what would be the response to that. If you need to create more of a backstory to make this more authentic, totally fine. You can share that with us as well. I want to give you this chunk of time because we've learned several new tools. And I really want you to have a chance in a small group to practice those in these two different situations that are hopefully identifiable. When you're in the breakout room, you can start typing up your response, and then you can just like copy and paste it into the Zoom chat when we all come back. If instead you'd rather share it verbally, that's fine too. Again, your choice. All right, so I think timing's gonna work out pretty well. Go back to the breakout rooms. I just need to adjust the timing for a moment here. So I'm going to do 7 minutes plus a 1-minute countdown. So it's a good chunk of time to have this conversation. Here we go. All right, welcome back. If you would like to share out verbally, go ahead and raise your hand. If you'd rather share out in the chat, please start typing that, but don't hit like return yet. We'll send that in just a moment. Anish, what did you and your group focus on?
So our group talked about situation one, and we kind of simulated the conversation where one came to two kind of aggressively and was wondering why his part or his or her part wasn't ready. And I feel like two is kind of the middleman where person three comes in and talks about how they're the one that told person two to fabricate the part. And instead of person one can then ask person two, I guess there's two different ways you can go about it, which is what our group talked about. One being person one can, and person two and person three can have a group discussion about it and talk about where the miscommunication was in terms of part priority and looking at the part priority and CNC or machining sheet before telling somebody to fabricate this part first, or at least letting person three letting person one and two know about the um, part that's going to get fabricated first before they go and start it, or person one asking person two, the other option, like, what are your thoughts on this before I go talk to person three? What do you think um, was the right thing that we both should have done in this situation?
I love how you all focused on like questioning and focused on maybe we need to add someone to this conversation. I think that's a really good strategy as well. Let's see. If you have typed up your thing for the chat, go ahead and hit return now, and we can see what our other examples are and get some sense of those. All right, so here we've got, again, for the first scenario, person two can try to make it safe by genuinely explaining the part process. I like genuine is a great word there. And rephrasing how they understand the issue to be. Person one can apologize because they got kind of upset. I think that's great. For the second scenario, we have an example here. Oh, I love this is like, excuse me. Apologizing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Took a lot of time. An example of mirroring here. Oh, this is great. You've got like the whole script. Copy this for next year. Checking their perspective, checking for that understanding. Again, being tentative, is that right? Can you help me understand this so I don't make this mistake again? This is great. That's really good. Really strong. Wonderful. So these tools that we've learned this evening are hard tools to remember to use when you're in the middle of a conversation. It's hard enough to use these in a breakout room on Zoom. You might be able to realize like, hey, I'm in the middle of a conversation and either I'm or the other person is in verbal silence or verbal violence. But at other times, you don't realize what happened until later. And then you have to go back and fix it, like in the example that Mr. Gupta and I shared earlier. Sometimes you have to wait until later because you or the other person or both of you need some space and time for emotions to subside before you can re-engage in dialogue. It's really hard to do this well. I struggle all the time to do this well. It's literally my job to coach teachers on how to do this well, and I still struggle on that. But if we all keep trying, and if we do the repeat part, we all will get better. You're going to see that you can improve your relationship after a conversation turned critical. And you're going to have better communication through your sub team, through our entire team, through with your friends, everything. Now that we understand what a crucial conversation is, we want to take a moment just for introspection. And what I mean by this is ask yourself this question. This is a question you can leave with and mull over this evening. Do you have any places in your life that aren't going well? Do you have any places where relationships feel stuck because you can't get past something that was said or was done in the past? Or maybe it's because you have played out scenarios in your head and they all end up with you and the other person in verbal silence or verbal violence. If any of those resonate with you, think through why you feel that way. And then consider if you apologize for your part in the conversation, do you think you could get back into dialogue with the other person. So remember, our truth really enables a change of heart. There are so many amazing tools and skills in crucial conversations that I would love to teach you, that Mr. John would love to teach you, that we mentors would love to teach you. There are even skills related to holding people accountable in a respectful fashion. We've covered that in previous years' workshops. We're not going to focus on that this year, but both of these books are excellent, and I highly, highly recommend them. We have a few Mr. John's acronyms here, which are great. So just summarizing those that were sprinkled in throughout the slides. So these are the ones that were featured tonight. Finally, to wrap this up, we have one more professional skills workshop. It is next Monday, a week from today, and it's on crucial influence. I would summarize that as how can we over-determine success by intentionally leveraging all 6 sources of influence such that the initiatives and the changes we want to make on our team will be successful. As always, either right now or later tonight, perhaps even tomorrow, we mentors would really appreciate your feedback. Linked here is the Keep, Fix, Try. As always, I can put it in the chat as well. Copy. There we go. Threw this in the chat. So please, what should we keep doing? What should we consider fixing or trying for next time? Thank you all for being so engaged tonight. Thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts. And we'll see you all on Wednesday. Thanks.